Okay, welcome to Cashflow Lab. We're the podcast that breaks down money, markets, and, well, global power.
And today we're tackling a really big one, Taiwan.
Yeah, specifically why this relatively small island has become such an obsession for both China and the U.S.
It seems to matter far, far beyond its size. We're going to dig into why.
So you see the images, right? Chinese warships, drills getting closer and closer surrounding Taiwan. Beijing's message seems pretty clear. Reunification is the goal.
They're not subtle about it.
Mhm.
The military pressure is escalating, talk of encirclement, even using force if they deem it necessary. It's tense.
It really is. And that's what we need to unpack today. Why this level of intensity?
And it's not just Beijing, that commitment you mentioned. It's mirrored in a way by the U.S. We've heard American leaders, President Biden included, hinting, maybe more than hinting, at defending Taiwan militarily if China attacks.
So you have these two massive powers locked in, focused on this one island.
Exactly. It's incredibly high stakes. You've got this hope, maybe fading, for peaceful unification versus this growing fear that it might end up being forceful.
Okay, so let's get into that central paradox. You've got Taiwan, 23 million people, just 130 kilometers off the Chinese coast. How does that become the flashpoint for global superpower rivalry?
Right. Why is this the place Washington and Beijing seem almost fixated on, maybe even more than other tensions in the region?
That's our mission for this deep dive, isn't it? To go beyond just the headlines.
Yeah, we want to explore the two big reasons: Taiwan's geography, its physical location, and its just massive economic importance. You really need both to understand why neither side feels they can back down.
And it's not just politics, is it? This isn't some abstract diplomatic game.
Not at all. It's tied directly to global trade, technology, supply chains, financial markets, the whole structure of how the 21st century economy works.
And the stakes, I mean, if you just step back, they're huge. A conflict, or even China just blockading the island.
The shockwaves would be immediate, devastating. Global commerce, technology supplies, financial markets worldwide, everything gets hit.
It really shows how geopolitics and economics are tangled up here. Technology meets military strategy right on this island.
Precisely. And if you want to understand that economic piece, you absolutely have to start with the chips.
Ah, yes, the semiconductors. This is where this small island carries, well, it's almost unbelievable economic weight globally. And a massive amount of that comes down to just one company.
One giant company. We're talking, of course, about TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company.
Yeah, the cornerstone, aren't they?
Absolutely. It's kind of ironic, isn't it? Neither the U.S. nor China officially recognizes Taiwan as an independent country.
Right.
But both are incredibly dependent on the island economically, and so much of that dependence flows directly through TSMC.
The numbers here really tell the story. What is it? Taiwan produces something like 90% of the world's most advanced microchips.
That's the figure you hear, 90%. And when we say advanced microchips, we need to be clear what that means.
Okay, what are we talking about specifically?
We're talking the cutting edge, the really high-end stuff. TSMC makes the chips built at, say, 5 nanometer or even 3 nanometer scale. These aren't your basic components.
Oh.
They're the super sophisticated, super dense logic chips needed for the most demanding things today. Think artificial intelligence.
AI, right.
Developing new AI models, training them. It all runs on this kind of hardware. Without these chips from Taiwan, the whole AI revolution, it just slows right down.
So having 90% of that production concentrated in one place, that creates a massive global vulnerability.
A huge one. The whole world is dependent. These chips, they're everywhere. The device you might be using to listen to us right now,
Your phone, your computer.
new cars, smart fridges, servers, but also critically advanced military gear. Fighter jets, missile guidance, complex networks, they all need these top-tier chips.
So the potential disruption.
It's immense.
Yeah.
And you see U.S. leaders worrying deeply about this, losing Taiwan to China. The fear is it would permanently shift the global economic balance against the U.S., maybe irreversibly.
It's not just about losing access to chips then. It's bigger than that.
It's about losing technological leadership itself. That's the core fear.
Can you break down that fear a bit more? What's the specific worry if China controlled Taiwan and TSMC?
Well, the concern is that China could then basically re-engineer global trade if they controlled the leading edge of tech.
Okay.
They might try to push the U.S., Europe, Japan into becoming just suppliers of raw materials, basic stuff.
Right.
While the high-value finished tech goods, all manufactured within China's sphere of influence and sold globally.
Wow. So it flips the whole economic order.
That's the nightmare scenario for Washington. It fundamentally diminishes the U.S. role in the global economy.
Okay, that sounds like a powerful economic reason for China to want Taiwan. But the sources we looked at suggest it's not just about the economy for Beijing, right? Despite TSMC being this huge prize.
That's a really crucial point. The motivation in Beijing goes beyond just commercial gain, and you can see why if you look at China's economy already.
How so?
Well, if you use a measure like purchasing power parity, PPP.
Which adjusts for what money can actually buy locally.
Right. By that measure, China's economy is already bigger than the U.S. economy.
And just look at sheer output. What was it? China made over 30 million cars last year. The U.S. was less than half that.
Exactly. So it doesn't quite add up that Beijing would risk this massive global confrontation just for an incremental economic boost from TSMC.
Yeah.
They know TSMC is crucial globally.
Grabbing it wouldn't necessarily give them a simple monopoly without causing chaos, maybe even for themselves.
Precisely. The desire for reunification seems much deeper. It's tied to history, political control, this long-term national vision, not just grabbing chip factories for profit tomorrow.
And this huge economic vulnerability, this reliance on TSMC, it only exists because of where Taiwan is.
Geography is absolute key. Beyond the chips, Taiwan's location, just 130 kilometers off the coast. It's vital for military strategy and for trade routes. You just can't overstate its geopolitical value.
It's positioned right in the middle of everything.
It's the ultimate choke point, really. Its importance comes down to three critical sea lanes, these straits that are basically gates to the Pacific Ocean. Taiwan sits right there, controlling access.
Okay, let's map these out. To the west, between Taiwan and the mainland.
That's the Taiwan Strait itself. And it's not just crucial for China or Taiwan. It's a main artery for global trade.
Like one of the busiest shipping lanes in the world.
Absolutely. Think about the world's biggest container ships, oil tankers, ships carrying electronics, consumer goods. A huge number of them pass through the Taiwan Strait going to and from ports in Japan, Korea, China.
So if that strait gets closed, even temporarily for military drills,
the impact is immediate. Shipping insurance rates spike, energy prices could jump, supply chains for basically everything get disrupted instantly. Seismic ripples, as you said.
Okay, so that's the west. Then you've got the passages to the Pacific, to the north.
That's the Miyako Strait. It runs between the northern tip of Taiwan and Japan's Ryukyu Islands.
And to the south.
The Bashi Channel, or Bashi Strait. That runs between southern Taiwan and the Philippines.
And these two, Miyako and Bashi, they're the key strategic gateways.
They are the critical funnels. For the Chinese Navy, if they want to operate out in the open Pacific, what they call blue water capability, they have to pass through either Miyako or Bashi.
And conversely, that's how the U.S. and its allies would need to come in.
Exactly. To project power into the area or defend Taiwan, those are the routes. Control Taiwan, and you have immense influence over those straits.
So from China's perspective, controlling Taiwan isn't just about reunification, it's a strategic necessity. You mentioned Victor Gao, the former Chinese diplomat.
Yes, his point really highlights the Beijing perspective. He talks about how Taiwan, from their view, interrupts the Chinese coastline.
Interrupts. How so?
Geographically, Taiwan faces the Pacific. If Beijing sees it as controlled or influenced by a potentially hostile power like the U.S., it breaks the continuity of China's own coast. It physically blocks their direct, easy access out into the wider Pacific Ocean.
So it limits their naval reach, their ambition beyond their immediate waters.
Critically limits it. It's seen almost as a geographical affront, an obstacle to their natural rise as a maritime power.
Okay, that makes China's strategic need crystal clear. And that, in turn, explains the U.S. counter-strategy perfectly. The first island chain.
Right. This strategy is all about using geography, too, relying on U.S. allies and bases along that chain.
If you look at a map, you can basically connect the dots, can you? South Korea, Japan, down through Okinawa, the Philippines.
And Taiwan sits smack bang in the middle of that chain, geographically unavoidable.
The U.S. sees its allies along this line as the foundation for security in the region. And Taiwan, even though it's not a formal treaty ally.
It's central to the whole thing working.
Absolutely pivotal.
And the purpose of the U.S. maintaining this chain, what's the goal?
It's really twofold. First, it lets the U.S. project its own power close to China, which reassures allies like Japan and South Korea, and protects U.S. interests in the Indo-Pacific.
Second, and maybe more importantly for deterrence, it makes it much, much harder for China's military to operate outside that chain. to project power further out into the Pacific, towards U.S. territory or global sea lanes. It's designed as a form of containment.
A geographical barrier to Chinese naval expansion,
That's the idea.
which leads us right into the current military jostling. The actions both sides are taking right now, it feels like a very active, kinetic struggle for dominance.
It really does. On the U.S. side, the focus is on strengthening that first island chain. That means working much more closely with allies, particularly Japan and the Philippines.
Both of whom seem increasingly worried about China's actions, especially in the South China Sea.
Definitely. They share a growing unease about China's assertiveness.
And we're seeing concrete steps, aren't we? The U.S. getting access to those new bases in the northern Philippines.
Right near the Bashi Strait we just talked about, that's not a coincidence. It significantly improves the U.S. ability to respond quickly in a crisis involving Taiwan or the South China Sea.
Positioning assets right next to that critical gateway.
And the military exercises are getting, well, much more pointed. Remember those recent U.S.-Philippines drills?
Where they sank that old ship.
An old Chinese-built ship that the Philippine Navy used to use, sinking it publicly like that.
Yeah.
Well, the message to Beijing is loud and clear. It's about readiness, cooperation, and commitment to defending those waters.
Not subtle at all.
No.
Now, understandably, China sees this whole island chain strategy very differently. They reject it completely.
They see it as deeply provocative, outdated, even insulting. They call it outmoded thinking from the 19th century, the imperialist era.
Like foreign powers telling China where it can and can't go in its own backyard.
Exactly. They fundamentally reject the idea that the U.S. or anyone else can just draw a line on the map and block China's access to the Pacific.
So their response is to build a military capable of breaking through that chain. That's where this A2AD idea comes in, anti-accessoria denial.
That's the core concept. A2AD isn't one weapon, it's a whole system, a layered defense.
Okay, break that down. What does it involve?
It's designed to keep U.S. forces, especially big, valuable targets like aircraft carriers or forward bases, away from the conflict zone, maybe push them hundreds of miles out. To do that, Beijing is deploying lots of things: long-range ballistic missiles, carrier killers, advanced submarines, anti-ship cruise missiles, sophisticated sensors, cyber warfare capabilities, all networked together.
And the goal?
Deny the U.S. access to the area near Taiwan, make it too risky for the U.S. to intervene effectively so China can achieve its objectives like reunification without interference. Ensure they can operate inside the chain.
And the most visible symbol of this military buildup is probably their Navy, right? Especially
Right.
the new aircraft carriers. The Fujian just had sea trials.
The Fujian is a huge deal. It's their third carrier, but much more advanced than the first two.
How so?
It uses electromagnetic catapults, like the latest U.S. carriers. That means it can launch heavier planes with more fuel and weapons much faster. It signals a major leap in capability.
Moving from just defending their coast to being able to project power much further out. A real blue water navy.
That's clearly the ambition. Pushing the U.S. military back, asserting dominance within that first island chain, and maybe eventually beyond it.
Okay, so we have the economic drivers, the chips. We have the critical geography and the military strategies clashing. But to really get the full picture, we have to dig into the history, the ideology behind this, especially for Beijing.
Absolutely. You can't understand the intensity without understanding the historical narrative. It really starts back in the mid-20th century.
With the Chinese Civil War.
Right. Late 1940s, brutal conflict. The communists under Mao Zedong win on the mainland, establishing the People's Republic of China, the PRC.
And the losing side, the nationalists under Chiang Kai-shek.
They flee across the Taiwan Strait, set up their government there, calling it the Republic of China, the ROC, and claiming they were still the legitimate government of all China.
Which gives us the core diplomatic problem today. Two governments, each claiming to be the real China.
Exactly. And Beijing, the PRC, views Taiwan as a province that broke away, insisting on the one China principle. But here's the kicker.
They've never actually governed Taiwan.
Never. Not since the PRC was founded in 1949. Yet the claim remains absolute.
But the drive for reunification, it goes even deeper than just the end of the Civil War, doesn't it? We have to talk about the century of humiliation.
Yes, this is absolutely fundamental to understanding the mindset in Beijing today. It's a core part of their national story, their ideology.
What period does that cover?
Roughly from the mid-19th century, think the Opium Wars, up to the mid-20th century, the end of World War II and the Communist Revolution. It was a period when China faced repeated foreign invasions, internal chaos, and was forced to sign these unequal treaties.
Ceding territory, sovereignty.
Right. lost Hong Kong to Britain, other concessions to various European powers, Russia, and, critically, Japan.
And Japan's role connects directly to Taiwan.
Very directly. After China lost the First Sino-Japanese War in 1895, Japan took Taiwan and ruled it as a colony for 50 years, until 1945. For China, this whole century is seen as a period of profound national shame, weakness, being carved up and controlled by outsiders.
So from that perspective, bringing Taiwan back isn't just about completing the Civil War outcome. It's about finally ending that century of humiliation.
It's seen as erasing that stain, achieving full national sovereignty and strength. President Xi Jinping talks constantly about national rejuvenation.
The great revival of the Chinese nation.
And regaining Taiwan is presented as an absolutely essential piece of that rejuvenation.
Yeah.
For Xi, it seems to be a core part of his legacy, his historical mission as this transformative leader. Reunification is framed as non-negotiable, a historical necessity.
While Beijing has this powerful historical driver, the U.S. approach for the last 50 years has been, well, complicated. This policy of strategic ambiguity.
Deliberate ambiguity, yeah. It's been a diplomatic tightrope walk. Remember, after the Civil War, the U.S. initially backed the nationalists in Taiwan, recognized them as the government of China, even had troops stationed there under a defense treaty.
But that all changed in the 1970s.
Drastically. Nixon goes to China. The U.S. wants relations with Beijing. So Washington had to switch recognition. They closed the embassy in Taipei, withdrew the troops, and formally recognized the PRC government in Beijing as the sole legal government of China.
But they didn't completely cut Taiwan loose.
Not at all.
No.
This is where the ambiguity comes in. While the U.S. acknowledged Beijing's one China policy.
Meaning Beijing's position that there is only one China and Taiwan is part of it.
Right. The U.S. acknowledged that position but didn't explicitly endorse Beijing's claim of sovereignty over Taiwan. And crucially, Congress passed the Taiwan Relations Act, the TRA, in 1979.
And the TRA does what?
It sets up the basis for ongoing unofficial relations. The U.S. has a de facto embassy in Taipei. And critically, it commits the U.S. to provide Taiwan with weapons for self-defense. It also states the U.S. will maintain the capacity to resist any use of force against Taiwan.
So the ambiguity is designed to deter both sides.
That's the goal. Deter Taiwan from declaring formal independence, which would likely provoke China, and deter China from attacking Taiwan because they can't be 100% sure how the U.S. would react. Keep the status quo, however fragile it is.
Which brings us to the people actually living on the island, caught in the middle of all this for decades. What does it mean for them?
Well, it's important to remember what Taiwan has become during this time. It transformed itself from an authoritarian regime under the nationalists.
Chiang Kai-shek's rule was pretty harsh initially.
Very much so. Martial law for decades. But it evolved, especially from the late 1980s onwards, into one of Asia's most vibrant democracies.
We're talking free elections, free press.
Strong civil liberties, and active civil society. And famously, the first place in Asia to legalize same-sex marriage. It's a modern, progressive, democratic society.
And for the people there, despite living under this constant shadow from China, what do most of them actually want?
Polls consistently show the vast majority prefer to maintain the current situation, the status quo. Neither immediate independence nor immediate unification.
Just keep things as they are, even with the tension.
Yeah, the tension has become sort of a strange normal. But even within that preference for the status quo, there's division on how to maintain it.
How so?
Some Taiwanese feel they absolutely must rely on the U.S., Japan, other democracies for protection. Their argument is basically, if China wants to bully us, our only hope is our powerful friends.
Okay.
But others feel differently. They worry about being trapped between these giants. They argue Taiwan needs to find a way to maintain working, maybe even friendly, relations with both the U.S. and China to avoid provoking Beijing or becoming too dependent on Washington.
Feeling like a pawn in a bigger game.
Exactly. You hear that sentiment a lot. Feeling marginalized, that their own voice, their desire for self-determination gets lost in the noise of the U.S.-China rivalry. They want to decide their own future.
And that desire for self-determination, that democratic identity, is a big part of the stakes for the U.S. too, isn't it? Beyond just chips and geography.
It's fundamental. Supporting Taiwan isn't just about alliances or strategy. It's framed as supporting democracy against authoritarianism. Taiwan chose a path aligned with the U.S. worldview, democracy, capitalism, individual freedoms.
So if China were to take Taiwan by force?
It would extinguish that democracy overnight, and the signal that would send globally.
Especially to other U.S. allies in the region.
The chilling effect would be profound. Allies like South Korea, Japan, the Philippines, they'd immediately question the reliability of U.S. security guarantees. If the U.S. couldn't or wouldn't defend Taiwan, can we really count on them?
It could unravel the entire U.S. alliance structure in the Indo-Pacific.
Yeah.
Maybe force countries to accommodate Beijing instead.
That's the deep fear. American credibility would be shattered.
Okay, let's try and pull all these threads together. We've covered a lot. What's the synthesis here?
It really comes down to Taiwan sitting at this critical intersection. It's indispensable economically because of the chips, 90% of the world's most advanced semiconductors.
Powering everything from AI to iPhones to fighter jets.
And it's indispensable geographically and militarily, sitting right at the heart of that first island chain, controlling access to the Pacific.
So geopolitics and economics are just completely fused here.
Absolutely. And that's why any instability, conflict, blockade, even just heightened tension poses such huge risks to global supply chains, the tech industry, consumer goods worldwide, investors, businesses, governments. Everyone is watching the Taiwan Strait very, very closely.
Which leads to maybe the final, most difficult question. If you could somehow solve the economic issues or mitigate the strategic ones, what's left? What's the truly fundamental conflict here?
I think ultimately it boils down to a clash of fundamental narratives. Identity versus historical mandate.
Explain that.
Taiwan has evolved its own distinct identity. It's a democratic society that sees itself as separate, with a right to self-determination, rooted in that modern democratic worldview.
While China
Views Taiwan through the lens of history, overcoming the century of humiliation, achieving national rejuvenation, fulfilling what they see as an undeniable historical destiny of unification. It's a political and ideological necessity for the Chinese Communist Party.
So it's not just about chips or islands or shipping lanes anymore. It's about these two irreconcilable ideas of what Taiwan is and what it should be.
Exactly. Taiwan's established modern self-identity versus China's powerful, historically rooted political mandate. Because of where Taiwan is located, what it produces, and what it has become, neither Beijing nor Washington feels it can truly back down.
Which means this tension isn't going away anytime soon. It's likely to define global power dynamics for the foreseeable future.
It seems almost unavoidable.
Okay, a lot to think about there. Thanks for breaking that down. And thanks to you for tuning into Cashflow Lab.
If this deep dive helped you understand the stakes around Taiwan a bit better, please subscribe and maybe share it with others.
We'll be back soon with more insights into how politics, money, and markets shape our world. See you next time.